Hello, Luxander. Real quick before we get
Hello.
started, pronouns?
I'm doing it's right now.
It's based. One of
Yeah.
my favorite types of pronouns, genuinely. Big fan of the idits users. I think it's based as hell.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the show, Luxander. You have one of the sweetest communities on the internet. And I'm gonna say that before you introduce yourself, so that everybody in this audience knows you have a fucking crazy sweet community. Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself? Let everybody know what you're all about, where they can find you.
So yes, making YouTube videos for like 7+ years because that's when I started testosterone was in 2015, the first time. Um, I'm also on Twitter at Lux_banana. If anybody's interested in hearing me just vomit my thoughts over there. Yeah, I talk about gender stuff for the most part, and more recently in the last couple of years, I talk about politics more as I'm being dragged further and further to the left. It's interesting being
Yes, join
radicalized, but
us.
knowing it in real time, you know?
Yeah, of course. Hey, I mean that's the best type, right? That with open eyes acknowledging where you're headed. That you're actively seeking out a more complete and radical worldview. I think that's the best type.
Yes, absolutely. At least, you just being self-aware is one of the most important things. So
And also one of the hardest things, as it turns out.
it's true. Yeah. I appreciate you complimenting my community. I've
Mercy.
always believed that it's very, I think it's silly when people are like, oh, I don't have any control over what my audience does. It's like, well, your audience is kind of a reflection of you. So if you're a shithead, then you're kind of going to cultivate an audience of shitheads. Ah, Calvin.
Listen, okay. Listen, I won't say anything else because I risk the ire. But okay, that person has the most fucking unsettling relationship with me ever. Now, thankfully, it's cooled down as of recently, but there was a point where they were literally tweeting whenever they thought I was awake, they'd be like, "I know you're awake. You're tweeting."
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding
That's
you. That
terrifying.
genuinely terrifying. I think that person has. I think I have them muted now, but previously they were adding me so frequently. I couldn't. Thank you so much. Yeah, they used to at me constantly on Twitter. It was very weird. But yeah,
It's
all
nice
my
to have
viewers know.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have relationships with other creators, but that not like that. No.
Yeah, no, please. Let's keep it cool. Let's be nice to one another and not weird. Now, I will admit, I have been rather mean, in reverse, but I think I'm well within I think my lines have been pushed to the point where I'm allowed to be a little mean in response.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
to have a balance, I think, like,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to with my stream career, which is a pretty recent thing. I've
Mm-hmm.
only just started doing it like full time for my actual job. And
Well, that's
I
awesome,
kind of,
though.
yeah, it's, well, so if, the thing that I want to talk to you about potentially, I'm cool
Mm-hmm.
with just talking about whatever, but like being
Please.
forced out of the traditional labor market. Um,
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that. Oh, I have so much to say.
Yeah, because I just recently started streaming. But what I was just gonna say real briefly was, people keep being like, "Uh-oh, Kink at Pride is coming soon. I don't want to deal with this," and I'm just over here like rubbing my hands together, like, "Yeah, like it's my
It's
first,
time.
my first summer." Yeah.
Now, I will warn you in advance. It is going to get very toxic, and the excitement to be able to engage in the blood may fade with time. Just from the old grizzled veteran's position. I do look forward to spamming and also making a better version of my ironclad take at Kink at Pride. This year, I would like to go even further into the ridiculousness with my thumbnail, as if last year's my cartoonish character sitting on a throne made out of people in latex suits and putting my feet up on a puppy boy in a giant hellish throne
Yes.
room full of torture implements. If that wasn't extreme enough, I'd like to go even further for this year's thumbnail. But yeah, it's boy, Kink at Pride. God, that's going to be a interesting one. We'll just know that we will be gender non-conforming individuals in arms this coming summer. I'm quite sure of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really excited. But yeah, so I have just very recently started doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of like I just found your channel in December and really like started watching you regularly. I did catch up on some of your older stuff, so I do know that
Yay!
like there was kind of a chunk of time where you like didn't really have a solid like career thing going, and like
I
streaming
didn't.
was
Yeah.
kind of the thing that took off, right?
Yeah. So when I moved to Seattle at first, I had just sort of lost. I had just sort of come to the end of like a very long period of doing freelance writing work. And so when I first moved here, I had like left. I had sort of ended off. There was a sort of mutual breaking of a relationship I had with this one SEO company where I just did the most fucking terrible garbage writing most torturous shit you could imagine. But I had done pretty well at that company and had moved up to like an editor position. But the pay was just atrocious, and the work
Mm.
schedule was, as is typical with gig economy, always is the job. You are always like, somebody can send you a text and they want you to respond, and it's ridiculous. And yeah, so then when I came here to Seattle, I was like, okay, I really want to do this streaming thing, so I'm going to start small and put time into it, and then my goal will be to sort of reach some level of income. And then when I realized that like I really enjoyed it, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to make a sort of take a risk and set up my website, so that I don't have to like be at the behest of either Twitch or YouTube or
Mhm.
any of the other streaming sites. And that made a big difference. It's really only been possible for me because of my website, which allows me to have like a direct relationship with my viewers as opposed to through Twitch or through YouTube. They can pay me directly, they can subscribe directly, the costs are lower than Twitch, and I can handle any customer issues directly as opposed to having to like go through some big rigmarole with Twitch. And yeah, that was like a big deal. So I've been doing this full time for like a year and a half, but for the first like 6 to 8 months of streaming, it was just part time. I just put a lot of my free time into it, and then I was doing some writing stuff on the side, but my income had taken a bit of a hit at that time. So yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I am 28 and I've been working like since I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
I worked through my transition in like retail, like
Oh my
working at
God,
gas
that's
stations and
so
stuff.
rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I started working at a gas station when I was 18 and I started tea when I was 21.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was trans that whole time. Like I just hadn't, I did that job for years and then tried to work for the US Postal Service as a mail carrier. And, uh, I think if I hadn't already had CPTSD from like childhood abuse, then I probably would have gotten it from like being bit by a dog on 2 separate
Oh my
occasions and like constantly
God.
having to be vigilant for that shit. Like in a place where gun violence was also like a thing, like, oh, let me walk up to this house that didn't used to have bullet holes in the door the last time I was up here. Great, perfect.
That's scary. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was really not good. So then after that, I had like a year where I was like really having a difficult time keeping a job for very long.
Yeah.
Went back to the gas station type thing for a couple years, and then I went to school to learn how to be an electrician. And after I did that trade program, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Mm.
And also like having PTSD and other shit. So I tried to work like I had a solar company job and then I had like a regular electrical job, and I got let go from that job in February because it just wasn't, I was not doing very well at it. I was losing my mind and just generally felt like shit all the time. So for me, I was like, okay, it's COVID time now. Like
Yeah.
I can't go back to working at a gas station or I will be physically violent towards someone. Like
Yeah.
I needed to quit that job in the first place,
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything that sounded like it would be possible for me to do.
Yeah.
And I've been like uploading content for like a really long time, just kind of like spreading my roots in a way.
Yeah. Which
and
is great. Like I
Yeah.
always tell people, the first piece of advice, like there's only so much advice that I can even give, about this type of stuff. But it's like, but the one that I always say is like, just make shit, anything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like even if it's not perfect. My first stream, which I still have a copy of, is hilariously bad. I literally was like, the first time I ever streamed, I was too nervous to like show my face. And it was only my friends who were watching that at that point, like 4 people I knew IRL, nobody else came by. And so I literally wore a mask over my face, and then just like talked into a mic while playing Hollow Knight. And it was so jank. And I only just talked about a little bit of politics, and like, but that was something, and I had something out. And then the next stream, you know, I tried something a little new, and like it even if, excuse me, sorry, I got a hiccup there. Even if you don't like nail it out the park, or nobody sees it, you're just engaging with and making something will illustrate all kinds of areas for yourself where you can do things and tweak things, and you start to get the feel for what you're making. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect content. It doesn't matter if it's not even entertaining. It doesn't matter if you're only pulling 1 or 2 viewers for a while, because you will learn so much that experience will put you above people who are, you know, people who aren't who are just starting. So it's literally the experience that makes you better. Plus you'll have stuff to look back on, and that's inspiring. Seeing a path behind you that you've carved is, like, in my opinion, very inspiring. I love being able to look back and go, one of the things I'm most proud of is that I can see my VOD library on my Dropbox account, and I can see that there's years of stuff that I've been talking about and covering, stuff that I've been creating, and that is a great feeling, even if I wasn't, you know, as successful as I have been with this channel.
Yeah, I also have BPD, which you have, which is is relevant. Also, I have ADHD. Yeah. Sorry.
No problem.
Think that having a record of like what I've said for the past like 7 years, also for me personally, like really helps counteract the like difficulty with sense of self. Like,
yes,
like the way that manifests for me is feeling like unmoored in my own history, and also I have a really shitty memory. So like having like physical reminders, or like in the sense of the video, like that is like a tangible reminder in a way of like, no, I've been saying the same shit for fucking 6 years. I've had the same opinions about this stuff. Like, why am I so insecure?
Yeah, it's funny too. Like for me, like there's been a lot of areas that I've even changed, and it's nice to go back and see like areas where I grew on a topic. But it's funny. It's like, it's really great, honestly, that you brought up the sort of like the way that it can help with that feeling of sense of self. I think that, like, oh God, like, it is very hard to be an online content creator with BPD in general. Like, it becomes even harder to maintain a sense of like a consistent sense of self, or a confidence in your sense of self, when there is so much conflicting information coming at you via comments, via Twitter, via all of the metrics that you get. It is really, really hard. But one thing I can return to is, well, first off, the streams that I've done, the stuff that I have actually made that there's a record of. I can go back and see the great things the things that I feel proud of, the things that I know that I did good on. I could see that. But also things that come along with that, messages, messages that I've received over the years from segments that meant something to somebody. These pieces like help me sort of help me remember exactly what I wanted to do and why I started doing this stuff in the first place. And I think that's like super important, but also it does contribute to a general feeling of accomplishment, and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like we're right at the 15 minutes, but also I don't know if your next person is here. I was prepared to like dip out right at the 15-minute mark.
We can probably go a little bit longer. I think, JXE just showed up, but let me see. Wait, so JXE was supposed to be here. Okay, so we probably should wrap up. But we can go a little bit longer. If you had one more thing you wanted to bring up real quick.
No, it's cool. I was like, that's kind of a perfect like wrapping up point. I could probably like, given I've like watched your content for a couple months now, like I think we have enough in common that I do the like Minnesota goodbye thing where I'm like, we could probably just keep talking for hours if we weren't careful. So trying to be mindful.
I'm the same way, as you could tell, like me running behind on all of my stuff for the day, but I'm always like that. But I gotta say, like it is hard to do a career like this, but it is possible. And it's especially possible when there's as many passionate people who are willing to support the art that they care about. And for me, this has become sustainable for really one reason only, and it's not ad revenue, it's not anything like that. It's the fact that I have a sort of core base of people who are really interested in what I have to say, who give me good feedback, people who are actually invested in where my channel is going to go, and they want to see more from me. It's a back and forth that is really, really inspiring. And I do think that that's possible. I think it's one of the things that can make a job like this, or work like this, whatever you want to call streaming, viable, and also really a viable alternative to traditional employment. It's funny, like one thing I wanted to mention that you mentioned about like how you just couldn't handle like working at a gas station more. That's the same way that I feel about sales. When I used to be in sales and I left sales to go do freelance writing, which honestly freelance writing wasn't that big of a step up, but I had just reached my limit. I couldn't do it anymore. Going into work and having to just sort of like push everything down and continue doing the sales, continue doing all that stuff was really difficult, especially with some of the stuff that I dealt with from transition. Because I moved locations while I transitioned, and there was some really, really sketchy shit that happened with with my application that mysteriously disappeared the moment that people found out I was trans. Very strange. And yeah, like that stuff's hard. I think people don't realize like how common it really is. The reason why every gas station job, every retail job is like they're all revolving doors of employees is because people burn out. They can't handle the work environment. Is miserable. It's terrible. Most of these jobs you are paid to be an abuse sponge, and that gets even worse if you have something that is easily like can be jumped on easily by bigots. If you're trans, if you're a minority of like a racial minority or a religious minority, these are things that make it worse, because it's stuff that the average fucking angry customer can grab onto and target you for, and it sucks.
Yeah, I went from working overnight as a like totally female seeming person for several years to then working during the daytime as like an increasingly gender ambiguous person.
Yeah.
And that on its own, I think would be enough to like push most people out of that type of work. Like the consistent scrutiny and just toxic environment in general. Like people are not kind. They're like, oh yeah, you're in a service industry. That means you're functionally a servant. Like it's genuinely as though they're replicating that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad.
I'm not doing it anymore, and I'm never doing it again.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm literally
so
like, it's wild, because like I still am to this day nervous about things to do with this, but like throwing myself into it, just being like, nope, I don't care. You can't make me show up and go and work for some stupid asshole who's going to mistreat me and underpay me, who's like, especially after my experience in sales, which, let's be real, when I was in my early 20s, I was pretty naive, and I thought there was some opportunity for me to grow in sales. It was just like, oh God, it didn't happen. It doesn't happen. Even if you are really, really good, they will always find ways to make the situation advantageous to them and not to you. And it's exhausting. So I was like, nope, I'm going to figure out how to make this stream thing happen, or I don't know what I'm going to do. So, yep.
Yeah. I would say for me, having just like, after I lost my job, like just deciding like, oh, I'm just going to do this now, is going shockingly well. So I'm always appreciative. I think that there are some people who are fans of both you and I. I see some familiar names in both of our chats.
Yay!
So
That makes me
that's
happy.
pretty cool too. Yeah, I like having crossover community, and I like it when, like, I don't know, I just love recognizing people and be like, hey, it's Holokin, or like whoever, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I love seeing that as well. It makes me happy. I don't do it as much as I used to for obvious reasons, but I used to pop into chats more frequently. And I would love seeing people, crossover between the communities. But hopefully that grows. Will you, real quick, we do have to wrap up. Do you want to give us your shout out one more time for your channel and everything? And I can say, everybody, please go check out Luxander's stuff.
Yes. So I'm Luxander everywhere. That's just the name of the YouTube channel, is just Luxander, and Lux_banana on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I would not recommend putting on notifications for me because sometimes I just tweet like 15 times in a day.
Hey, that's great. Listen, sometimes you got to do 15 tweets in a day. What's wrong with that, huh? I do it sometimes. Sometimes I tweet 15
vomit.
pictures of dogs. You know, whatever.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mama, for having me on. I really appreciate having the chance to talk to you, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
We absolutely will. We will see each other around, and hopefully we will talk again in the future. Thank you so much, Luxander. Have a wonderful day.
I'll try. You too.
Bye for now.